The afternoon sun blazed over Maple Street, casting golden light across the pristine lawns and painted houses. A line of cars pulled up to number 42, where white ribbons danced in the breeze, tied to every lamppost and mailbox. Laughter echoed as families emerged, dressed in their finest suits and flowing dresses, carrying wrapped gifts and beaming smiles. Children raced ahead, their patent leather shoes clicking against the pavement. This was meant to be a day of pure joy, a celebration of love that had taken 2 years to plan. Maya Torres had chosen this venue, a historic garden estate, because of its beauty and the way light filtered through the old oak trees. She never imagined that the color of her skin, and that of her guests, would turn her perfect day into something else entirely. Victoria Ashworth stood at her living room window, her fingers gripping the curtain so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her eyes narrowed as she watched another car pull into the driveway next door. Her lips pressed into a thin, hard line. She had lived on this street for 30 years, and she considered herself its guardian, its protector against anything that might lower property values or disturb the peace. What she saw now filled her with a fury she felt was justified. These people, she thought, did not belong here. They were too loud, too many, too different. She did not care about permits or reservations. In her mind, this was an invasion. She snatched her phone from the coffee table, her hands shaking with anger and something darker, something she would never admit was fear of change. She dialed 911, her voice sharp and urgent when the operator answered. Yes, I need police at 42 Maple Street immediately. There is a massive gathering, completely unauthorized. These people are trespassing, causing a disturbance. I do not feel safe. They need to be removed right now. The operator asked questions, but Victoria cut her off. Just send someone. Now. She hung up and returned to her window, arms crossed, waiting for the cavalry she believed would restore order to her street. Inside the garden venue, Maya stood before a full-length mirror, her wedding dress shimmering like starlight. Her mother adjusted the veil, tears already forming in her eyes. You look like a queen, baby, she whispered. Maya smiled, but her hands trembled slightly. She had worried about this day for months, not because she doubted her love for Marcus, but because she knew the world could be cruel. She had insisted on having the celebration here, in this beautiful place, refusing to hide or shrink herself to make others comfortable. Marcus had supported her completely. He always did. 5 minutes, called her maid of honor from the doorway. Maya took a deep breath, steadying herself for the walk that would change her life forever. Outside, 2 police cruisers rolled to a stop in front of the property. Officers Daniel Hayes and Nicole Patterson stepped out, their expressions cautious but professional. They had responded to calls like this before, noise complaints that turned out to be nothing more than neighbors with too much time and too little tolerance. Hayes carried a clipboard, Patterson kept her hand near her radio. They approached the gathering, where guests had now noticed their arrival. Conversations died. Smiles faded. A little girl tugged on her father's sleeve, asking why the police were there. He had no good answer. Victoria rushed from her house, practically running across her lawn to meet the officers. Her face was flushed, her voice shrill. Thank God you are here. I called because this gathering is completely out of control. They showed up without warning, without permission. This is a quiet neighborhood. We have rules. They cannot just take over the street like they own it. She gestured wildly at the wedding guests, her contempt barely concealed. Hayes held up a hand. Ma'am, can you calm down and tell us exactly what the problem is? Victoria pointed again. The problem is them. They do not belong here. They are disturbing the peace. I want them gone. Maya's uncle, Robert, stepped forward. He was a tall man with silver hair and a dignified bearing, someone who had faced prejudice his entire life and learned to stand firm against it. Officers, I think there has been a misunderstanding. This is a private wedding celebration. We have all the proper permits filed with the city. The venue was rented months ago. Everything is legal and legitimate. He pulled folded papers from his jacket pocket, offering them to Hayes. Victoria scoffed loudly. Permits? I do not care about permits. This is my neighborhood, and I will not have it overrun. Patterson took the papers, scanning them quickly. Everything appeared to be in order. The venue rental agreement, the city permit for a private gathering, even a variance for extended hours. She looked at Victoria with growing irritation. Ma'am, these documents are valid. This is a legal event. There is no disturbance. Victoria's face turned red. No disturbance. Look at how many of them there are. This is not normal. Something is wrong here, I can feel it. You need to check identification, make sure they are who they say they are. Check for weapons, for drugs, for anything. The words hung in the air like poison. Maya's mother gasped, covering her mouth. Other guests began pulling out phones, recording the encounter. This was the moment they had all feared, the moment when celebration turned into humiliation, when joy became trauma. Robert remained calm, though his jaw tightened. Officer, I think it is clear what is happening here. We are being targeted because of the color of our skin. This woman has no legitimate complaint. She simply does not want black people in her neighborhood. Victoria sputtered, her face contorting. How dare you? This has nothing to do with that. This is about property values and safety and rules. But her eyes told a different story, one of deep-seated hatred that had festered for decades, fed by fear and ignorance. Hayes exchanged a glance with Patterson. They both knew exactly what this was. They had seen it too many times before. But they also knew their duty was to keep the peace, not to pick sides, even when one side was so clearly wrong. The venue doors opened. Footsteps echoed on the wooden porch. A man emerged, tall and commanding, dressed in an impeccably tailored black tuxedo with a silver vest and bow tie. His presence seemed to shift the very air around him. He moved with confidence, with purpose, his dark eyes taking in the scene before him with a mixture of disappointment and resolve. Marcus Coleman had heard the commotion from inside, where he had been greeting his groomsmen. He had hoped, perhaps foolishly, that today would be different. But he was not surprised. He was never surprised anymore. He descended the steps slowly, deliberately, giving Victoria time to see him clearly. Recognition hit her like a physical blow. Her eyes widened. Her mouth fell open. The color drained from her face so quickly she looked like she might faint. Marcus Coleman was not just any groom. He was the mayor of the city, elected 2 years ago in a landslide victory, the first black mayor in the city's 200-year history. His face had been on television, in newspapers, on billboards across town. Victoria had even voted against him, though she would never admit that now. Hayes and Patterson immediately straightened, their entire demeanor changing. Mayor Coleman, Hayes said, his voice tight with embarrassment. We were responding to a complaint. Marcus nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. I see that, Officer Hayes. And what exactly was the complaint? His voice was measured, controlled, but beneath it was steel. Victoria backed up a step, then another. She looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. I did not know, I thought, there were so many cars, and the noise, Marcus raised a hand, silencing her. You just what, Miss Ashworth? You just assumed that a gathering of black people must be illegal. Must be dangerous. Must be something the police needed to stop. He took a step closer to her, not threatening, but firm. Let me tell you what this is. This is my wedding day. These are my friends, my family, my colleagues. They are teachers, doctors, lawyers, business owners, veterans. They are people who contribute to this city every single day. And they have every right to be here, just as much as you have the right to stand in your yard and judge them. Victoria tried to speak, but no words came out. She looked around desperately, hoping for support from other neighbors who had gathered to watch, but they avoided her eyes. Some looked ashamed. Others pulled out phones to record this moment of accountability. Marcus continued, his voice rising slightly. You called the police because you saw black people and immediately assumed criminality. You did not check facts. You did not ask questions. You did not even consider that we might belong here. You acted on prejudice, pure and simple, and you tried to weaponize law enforcement to validate your bigotry. Patterson stepped forward. Mayor Coleman, on behalf of the police department, I apologize. This should never have happened. We will note in our report that this was a false complaint filed with discriminatory intent. Marcus nodded. Thank you, Officer Patterson. I appreciate that. And I hope this incident will be part of the ongoing training discussions we have been having about implicit bias and the misuse of emergency services. He turned back to Victoria, who now had tears streaming down her face, though whether they were from shame or anger, no one could tell. Miss Ashworth, I want you to understand something. Your actions today did not just hurt me. You hurt every person here. You hurt the children who now have to explain to their kids why the police showed up at a wedding. You hurt Maya, my bride, who has been planning this day for 2 years and now has this memory forever attached to it. Your hate has consequences, real consequences for real people. Victoria finally found her voice, thin and trembling. I am sorry. I did not mean. I did not think. Marcus shook his head. That is the problem. You did not think. You reacted from a place of prejudice, and that is unacceptable. He pulled a folded paper from his inside pocket. This is a copy of our event permit, signed by the city clerk, approved by the zoning board, and filed with the police department 3 months ago. Officer Hayes, you can verify this against your records. Hayes took the paper, barely glancing at it. He knew it was legitimate. He had known from the moment he saw the other documents. It is all in order, Mayor. Marcus nodded. I thought so. Miss Ashworth, you are free to return to your home. But know this, if you file another false police report, if you continue to harass my guests or any other people of color in this neighborhood, I will personally ensure that you face the full legal consequences. Victoria turned and fled, stumbling back across her lawn, her head down, her shoulders shaking. She disappeared into her house, the door slamming behind her. The gathered neighbors began to disperse, some shaking their heads, others whispering to each other about what they had just witnessed. Hayes and Patterson remained for a moment longer. Again, Mayor Coleman, we are deeply sorry, Hayes said. This should not have happened. Marcus softened slightly. I know you were just doing your job, officers. But I hope this serves as a reminder to always question the motivation behind complaints, especially when they target communities of color. The officers nodded and returned to their cars. As they drove away, the tension that had gripped the gathering began to ease. Guests started talking again, though their voices were more subdued than before. Robert approached Marcus, placing a hand on his shoulder. You handled that with grace, son. More grace than she deserved. Marcus smiled sadly. Grace is all we have sometimes, Uncle Robert. Responding with anger would only confirm her prejudices. Responding with dignity, with facts, with truth, that is how we win. Maya appeared at the venue entrance, her eyes wide with concern. She had heard everything from inside, her heart breaking with each word. Marcus turned and saw her, and for the first time since the confrontation began, his expression truly softened. He walked to her, taking her hands in his. I am so sorry, Maya. This was not how today was supposed to go. She shook her head, tears in her eyes but a smile on her lips. No, Marcus, you showed everyone here what it means to stand with dignity. You showed those children that we do not back down, we do not shrink, we do not let hate define us. I had never been more proud to marry you. The wedding guests began to applaud, slowly at first, then louder, until the entire gathering was cheering. Marcus and Maya stood there, hands clasped, surrounded by love and support, proof that hate, no matter how loud, could not extinguish the light of community and justice. The ceremony proceeded as planned, officiated by Judge Maria Santos, a longtime friend of Marcus's family. As Marcus and Maya exchanged vows under the oak trees, promising to stand together through all of life's challenges, every person present understood the deeper meaning of those words. This was not just a marriage. It was a statement. It was resistance. It was hope. The reception that followed was filled with music, dancing, and laughter that echoed through the neighborhood. If Victoria heard it from inside her house, curtains drawn tight, no one cared. The celebration belonged to Marcus and Maya, to their families, to their friends, to everyone who refused to let prejudice steal their joy. As the sun set and string lights twinkled overhead, Marcus pulled Maya close on the dance floor. "We did it," he whispered. She smiled against his chest. "We did. And we will keep doing it, every single day, until things finally change." And in that moment, surrounded by love, by community, by the unshakable belief that justice would always triumph over hate, they knew that change was not just possible. It was inevitable. Because people like them, people who stood firm, who demanded respect, who refused to be diminished, they were the future. And the future was bright.